Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have your doubts, not what I'm about, have your f***ing cloud, it be raining now. I keep making sound, go another round, some legend bound, can't stop me now.
You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can.
Anything negative, cause I just wanna hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. That's how you get big box, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient. Who's at the top think they need replacement? Who's at the top think I'm gonna erase it? Face it, I don't give up quick, I don't give up, I won't give up this. Cause I know that I want it, know that I'm on it, I'll make it, I promise.
You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can.
Well, that was cool. Did you guys like that? I told you I've been working on something to throw up there. But yeah, I get so excited. I made it. Yay! Getting this thing figured out. Getting to be a professional can of spam. But anyways, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing? How you doing? I hope everybody is doing well. Ooh, Jojo liked it. Awesome. As long as someone likes it besides me. Yay! But anyways, let me get this here. So we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. So, as I said on my last show here, pretty much I've told all of my own personal experiences. Generally. There's still a few things that are didn't make the cut. So I might bounce something up in there every now and again. But that being said, I have other stories that I've actually collected from real people that I can always throw in at points in time. But tonight, what we're going to try is me tell a story that everybody kind of knows. I've hinted at it a little bit, and we're actually going to go over the Betty and Barney Hill case. So, basically, I'm going to go over that a little bit. I'm going to give you guys, my lens, because I did some research and, I made the notes of things that kind of stood out to me that I don't know if everybody else out there have brought up before. So I'm going to throw that in there because I'm basically going to do like the generic-ish version of the story. So, yeah, we're going to try to make it cool. But But yeah, we'll see how well my storytelling ability is. Let you guys give me some feedback. People keep saying, "Oh, we love your voice, Fisher. You should read audiobooks." So, if y'all gonna inflate my head, let's make sure that I can do it. So, let's make it a trial run. But anyways, so yeah, that's gonna be the plan. I guess it's a little weird that I'll be reading it live instead of like a pre-record. I feel like maybe that's the way that you probably should do pre-done stories. I don't know. Then again, I don't know. I'm different. I'm not gonna, try to fill the same mold that everybody else does. So yeah, take that, everybody else. So that being said, same as always, guys. If you got comments or things you want to ask during it, throw them up there. By all means, interrupt me, please, because you guys will often have perspectives that might have went over my head. So, do it. Get it out there. Let's go. Let's send it. So, that being said, also, I'm going to do it as a fireside chat. And we're going to try a little bit of background music. Just a little bit. So, yeah, just throwing that out there. Guys, give me your input. Make sure you tell me if you like it or if you don't. That way I know how to do things in the future. Yada, yada. You know the spiel. I love y'all. I trust y'all. I'm going to do what y'all tell me to do. All right. So that being said, I'm going to do that. Let's see here. Let's get this set up and go in. And let's see here. Turn that on. Boomski. Boomski, boomski. All right. Next step. No. Hold on. Where's it at? Oh, there it is. Okay. Here we go. And oop. Turn my comments back on. Cool. There we go. Should be working. Can everybody still hear me okay? Give me a 1 in chat if you can still hear me. Pretty sure you can. I am also not 100% sure. I know that there is a delay. Got a thumb. Not a 1, but we'll go with a thumb. All right. So this actually came from the History Channel. The name of the article is How Betty and Barney Hill's Alien Abduction Story Defined the Genre. It was written by Linda Lekina. Original September 4th, 2018. Updated August 1st, 2023. Anyways, get all that out of the way. So like I said, I'm going to be reading this and then giving you guys the notes that I've inserted as well. All right. So without further ado, let's send it. It says, is it chasing us? That thought coursed through Betty and Barney Hill's minds as they drove down the empty, winding country road in New Hampshire's White Mountains. It was a September night in 1961. They hadn't seen a car for miles, and a strange light in the sky seemed to follow them. When they finally got home to Portsmouth at dawn, they were far from relieved. They felt dirty. Their watches had stopped working. Barney's shoes were strangely scuffed, and Betty's dress was ripped. There were 2 hours of the drive that neither one of them could remember. What happened. With the help of a psychiatrist, the quiet couple eventually revealed a startling story. Gray beings with large eyes had walked them into a metallic disc, as wide, Betty said, as her house was long. Once inside, the beings examined the couple and erased their memories. Now, here's a little bit of a note that I have. It says grays, right? So this is basically where we're going to get, in modern history, where the grays start making themselves known. But actually, as I'll put out a little bit later, not all of the story seems to actually be just the grays. Like, generally speaking, yes, but there's a few things that makes me go, are you sure? Are you sure? And we'll get to that. But let's keep this going. I want to get through the boring bits. Their experience would kick off an Air Force inquiry, part of the secretive initiative Project Blue Book that investigated UFO sightings across the country. The incident would also become the first ever widely publicized alien abduction account. And I have a note that says modern day, perhaps, because you guys have been with me for a little bit. You kind of know where I'm going with that thought, because these things still have the same MO, no matter how far back in time you go. The names change. Instead of aliens, they might be fae. They might be little folk or whatever. But the names change over time. The calling cards remain the same. But anyways, let's get back. And shape how stories like it were told and understood from then on. Debate continues as to whether the husband and wife were liars, fantasists, crackpots, or simply sleep-deprived people who later recovered seriously scrambled memories. I've been pretty sleep-deprived myself, but I cannot imagine being that sleep-deprived. But I digress. The Hills road trip was spontaneous, a well-earned break Barney decided the couple needed. As explained in The Interrupted Journey, a 1966 book they collaborated on with author John G. Fuller. Barney worked a grueling night shift at the post office, driving 60 miles each way. Betty's job, handling state child welfare cases, was no easier. The little free time this biracial couple had was devoted to their church and their activities related to the civil rights movement. After 16 months of marriage, Betty and Barney saw this trip through Montreal and Niagara Falls as their delayed honeymoon. About time. They left so impulsively, they had no time to go to the bank before it closed for the weekend. They got in their car with less than $70 in their pocket. First of all, man, inflation sucks. I can't imagine going on a weekend-ish type trip. Just $70. That's not even going to that's not even going to cover the gas. So I'm a little jelly there. A little jelly. Anyways, on the last night of their 3-day trip, the tired couple sipped coffee in a Vermont diner to recharge before driving back. Barney figured if they pushed through, they could beat the wind and rains of the approaching hurricane. They left the diner around 10 p.m., estimating they could reach their red-framed house in Portsmouth, New Hampshire between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. at the latest. Now, obviously, we kind of know a little bit better about that, don't we? So, with that being said, cue the creepy music. All right. As they drove, strange light in the sky with another reason to hurry. At first, it looked like a falling star, but grew larger and brighter with each mile. Barney, an avid plane watcher and World War II veteran, was sure they had nothing to worry about. It's just a satellite, he assured Betty. It probably just went off course. Now, here's my first note I want to put in here. So they said that it came from a mountain, right? And in fact, that peak in said mountain range has a bit of a name. It's called the Old Man of the Mountain. Now, what I want to make sure that you guys understand is, historically speaking, mountains are always known throughout history, depending on the regions, as a meeting place between the gods and man, or demons and man, whatever. I mean, it has a long history. This whole Old Man of the Mountain thing comes from somewhere. Sometimes, yeah, there is a creepy old feller living up there, but a lot of the times it's someone that maybe that they see that comes across as something creepy. A lot of times it can even be looked at in terms of spiritual north, in a sense. There's always something bad that comes and lives in the mountains of the north, and it's always connected to the spiritual somehow, some way. But anyways, let's keep going. The light seemed to move with the car as Barney steered down the curving mountain. The light zigged and zagged, ducking past the moon and behind trees and mountain ridges, only to reappear moments later. Sometimes it seemed to move toward them in a game of cat and mouse. It had to be an illusion, they thought. Maybe the car's movement made it seem like the light, too, was moving. Curiosity overcame them. The couple pulled over at road stops and picnic turnouts to get a closer look. Through binoculars, Betty saw that the white light was really an object spinning in the air. Barney, she told her husband, if you think that's a satellite or a star, you are being completely ridiculous. He knew she was right. Barney had an IQ of 140, noted Fuller in his book. Barney was also a pragmatic man who wouldn't give flying saucers a second thought. Remembering his niece Kathleen Marden, and her work captured the Betty and Barney Hill experience, the night was too quiet for a helicopter, a commercial plane, or even military jet without a hotshot pilot. That makes sense. Whatever. He didn't want to spook Betty, but he was becoming concerned. What was this like? And why was it toying with them? Very good question. Very good question. I don't have an answer necessarily, but I have the feeling that we're about to find out. All right. About 70 miles past the diner, the object hovered just above the treetops, approximately 100 feet above them. Barney abruptly stopped the car, keeping the engine running. He shoved a handgun He'd hidden beneath the seat into his pocket and rushed into a dark field, leaving Betty in the car. Now let's turn to my notes. Sorry. All right, so the note that I want to tell you guys about is that if you go, you can find his own like recordings of his hypnotic regressions. And let me just tell you, the fear, the fear that this man has while recounting this tale is one of the most haunting and chilling things that I think I have ever heard. I mean, granted, he's reliving this moment, right? So all that emotion is coming back just as raw and just as powerful as when he felt it. And personally, I know that I can like very much sympathize with it. I mean, just go back and listen to it. It is haunting. Her account is bad too, but it doesn't always stay, dark. I mean, it gets a little bit lighthearted, and we'll go over that a little bit too. But his account, it is just so visceral and so gut-wrenching. Like, for me, my other note on this is I can't help but feel when I hear this man's recordings that he knows in his spirit what is fixing to happen. And he is unprepared. He is terrified out of his mind. So I encourage you guys, first of all, to go and check that out. Afterwards, of course. But anyways. What he saw was as big as a jet, but as round and flat as a pancake. My God, what is this thing? He recalled thinking. This can't be real. Behind rows of windows, gray uniformed beings seemed to be looking right at them. As Barney recalls, he tried to lift his hand to his pistol, but somehow couldn't. Where's that sound familiar? A voice then told him not to put down his binoculars. Keep looking. Let's see here. My notes. All right, so during this account, in his regression, this is kind of why I say, was it really Gray's? Because in his description of things, first of all, he is referring to them as men. That's what is coming to his mind at the minute, that they are men. Although he did note that even though they were men, their eyes were slanted. And obviously, from that distance, all he could do, he could tell that through the binoculars. I believe they were like a 7x50 or something like that. But anyways, let me see here. One more. Oh, yeah. All right. He had startling thought. We're about to be captured. Yelling hysterically, he ran back to the car and barreled down the road as Betty tracked the craft, craning her head outside the car window. Without explanation, loud, rhythmic beats sounded from the car's trunk. The couple felt instantly drowsy and remembered losing consciousness. And I will say that, let's see here, the sound that they described, it sounded to them like it was a tuning fork. That's the way they described it. And the feeling that came over them all was like that of static or electricity. Now that's an interesting little way of describing it, isn't it? I've often described my own personal experiences with these things. when they touch you as electrical. I find that very, very interesting. Anyways, they came to around 2 hours later and 35 miles down the road from where they thought they had lost consciousness. All right, the next part. Using hypnosis to recover the Hill's abduction memory. All right, back home in Portsmouth, they tried to make sense of the night. Barney felt compelled to examine his body's lower half. Both seemed aware of a puzzling presence. Now, a little bit of a note. When he examined himself, I don't know why they decided to leave this out on this article, but when he examined himself, he found that he had warts that had come up suddenly on and around his genitalia. Why? No. But if you know, this is kind of like where the whole probing thing comes to the zeitgeist, I guess you could say. They collected a sample from him, and it was very dramatic for him. Poor fella. Anyways, in the weeks and months after, Betty, an avid reader, checked out books from the library discovering the civilian UFO group, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, also known as NICAP. She also reported the sighting to the Air Force, worried about radiation. And, interesting note, there was radiation that was present when people came out to investigate the trunk. They were able to pick up very high readings of radiation from the trunk of the car. Why? I don't know. I have a theory that I'm going to share on that a little bit later. That's completely off the subject from this as well as my perspective, but it's an interesting note, and I will share that with you guys at the end. At least try to. In coming years, with Betty suffering from disturbing dreams and Barney developing an ulcer and anxiety, the couple sought mental help. The two met with Benjamin Simon, a psychiatrist and neurologist who specialized in hypnosis, which was a mainstream technique at the time. Through months of weekly sessions, Simon helped the couple piece together what they think had happened. All right. A vessel had landed on the Hill's car, putting them to sleep. Afterward, gray beings walked them up a long ramp and into a spacecraft. Now, one thing that's left out here is that happened after they made Barney turn down a dirt road off of the main path. This was not, from what I gather from, other information on this, is that he didn't understand why he was turning down this road, but he felt compelled to. And when he did, they were there waiting. So they took over his body. Also interesting, right? Let's see here. I've got a note too. Oh, and the light that the ship was giving off was said to be an orangish glow. Also, very familiar, isn't it? All right, so once inside, another note here, they described the interior lights as blue. Now, I don't know if there's any relevance to that, But I do know that the color blue is often used not just to, tell you if it's a boy or a girl at a party. No, it's also used to calm people. I don't know what it is about blue light, but it has a slightly calming effect. And there's other things too that are kind of but I don't know that they apply. But there's still a connection there. Like, people like to paint their porches a special color of blue because spirits can't cross water and stuff like that. I think the name for it is maybe called Haint Blue. That could be wrong. I don't think that's relevant, but it's something. It's something. The Hills were separated, taking turns in an examination room that had curved walls and a large light hanging from the ceiling. Now, my next note here is, this... Let's see here. Let me make it so I can turn this page easier. They were separated, and they're not really giving as much detail as I would like here. And one thing that's happening during this while they're being walked, Betty is trying to get Barney's attention. But something is wrong. She feels as though he is sleepwalking because he's just non-responsive, and she can't understand why. Like I said, he appears to be asleep. I think he's still under a little bit of that spell, if you would. But once they're separated and they're doing some chatting, another interesting note that I have here is that, she's asking about, where's Barney going? What's wrong with Barney? And the imminent question that these entities seem to have is that his name? And they keep hounding her about this a lot. I don't know the reason why, but they seem to really want his name. Now, I could take the demonologist approach to that and look at it. Tell me your name, demon. Is that what's going on here? Is having something's name really like a little bit of power? I don't know. I don't think so personally. But I do find it interesting how desperate they want this man's name. But anyways, let's keep on. Each was asked to climb up on a metal table. The table was so short, Barney's legs hung over the side. During the examinations, the beings removed Betty and Barney's clothes. And I have a note. And one of the interesting notes about this is that their watches that they were both wearing after this event stopped permanently. Nothing anybody could do could make these watches work again. Now, I know that there's people that are, well, they have like this interesting talent for being able to like drain the batteries in watches. My wife is pretty bad about this too. Like, I can see that being a thing, but I don't know what could stop a mechanical watch. I mean, short of just utter destruction. So I find that interesting. So I don't know. And yes, let's see here. We got a comment. Stories of old would have you believe that that's true, knowing the name of a thing gave you power over it, Freaky says. And hi, buddy. Yeah, possibly. That's what I was saying earlier. Is like it's maybe a thing. I don't know. I'm not sure that I buy it, but I don't have enough experience to say whether or not. So maybe. Anyways, let's keep going on. They plucked strands of their hair, took clippings of their nails, and scraped their skin. Each sample was placed on a clear material not unlike a glass slide. And, as I noted earlier, they took more than that from Barney. Poor guy. Needles connected to long wires probed their heads, arms, legs, and spines. Now, the one thing I have noted for that is I can't remember the name of it, but I remember my wife having to go and to have a procedure done. And she said it was called a nerve conduction test. And that's what it made me think about with these needles with wires connected to them. Now, I don't know if that's what was going on here, but it just, it made me think that. So maybe, I don't know. Anyways, let's carry on. One large needle, around 4 to 6 inches long, was inserted into Betty's belly. And in her regression story, she actually refers to it as her navel. Belly button. We all got one of those. And she was very much in pain by this. And I was like, that's weird. And I'll tell you the explanation they gave her. So what they say is, the way they phrase it is, this pregnancy test left her twisting in pain. Throughout, a being Barney and Betty both called the leader watched from the side. Now, pregnancy test. Even her, and her thing was like, what did you do this for? What was that? And he's like, it was a pregnancy test. And she's like, this is no pregnancy test like I have ever taken on Earth. She's like, y'all need to do better. So, giving him some grief over that goes to her. But, my wife's a nurse. I was like, and I told her about this. I said, is there any kind of, is there anything that this is close to in what we do? And turns out there is. And she told me she couldn't remember the name of the test, but they used to do that back in the old days. And what they did it for was for checking genetic abnormalities, but also for taking samples of the amniotic fluid. They also could be for emergency surgeries, like if something was going on in that area. And of course, in modern times, we can see that too. They make an incision, put a tube in there, right? I mean, she described this thing as being quite large. But, yeah, so that's interesting. But while she was sitting there, like, writhing in excruciating pain, now this is a big one, y'all. This is something that's interesting. The leader walks up to her as he was only just observing and puts his hand on her head. And suddenly, she cannot feel the pain anymore. I find that very intriguing. To me, this sounds... Well, I mean, I guess the mainstream UFO people would be like, oh yeah, the aliens, they use their far superior alien space magic, something that sounds like the Force, to block her pain. I'm sorry, there's nothing biological that makes sense because there was nothing on his hand. He just put his hand on her. And it stopped. The only precedents that I know of that makes sense for is in the cases of healing. And these things aren't exactly friendly. So I want you guys to know that there is a precedence for also demonic healing. Because it's not just limited to people that are nice and love to praise God. No. Demonic healings can happen just as easily. It's not always perfect, because nothing they do is perfect. Oftentimes they will heal you, and after some time, it comes back. So I find that interesting. I find that very interesting. But let's keep going. After Betty's examination ended, the beings rushed back into her room excited. They had discovered that Barney's teeth could be removed. Now this brings a bit of levity. Betty laughed and explained that Barney had dentures, a fact of humans aging the beings struggled to understand. And they didn't really word that well. Whatever. But basically, they had a hard time grasping the fact that, well, one, humans age. Like, the concept of aging didn't even cross their mind. Like, they didn't understand it at all. Now, if you're biological, how? I mean, I guess we could use some funky space magic and heal yourself. But I don't think so. I mean, they would know. You can't come from light years across space and not understand age. You obviously at least understand time if you're traveling at the speed of light, right? How old are these things? And are they playing a charade almost? Because it's like, I can't put my finger on it, but that's just a huge red flag. Why are you struggling to understand the concept of aging? Now, granted, Barney was older, yeah, but he also had like injuries from World War II, right? That caused him to have these dentures. But either way, you know, them being like excited and giddy and just fascinated by the fact that, oh my gosh, his teeth come out, and can we pull yours out too, Betty? You know, like when she described that was pretty funny to me. You know, and if there is a case to be made for aliens actually being a thing, you know, that can maybe add a little bit of weight to that argument. You know, I still think it's ridiculous, and just the way that she tells this story is just such a red flag. And once again, guys, I encourage you guys, go check out the regression tapes and tell me what you think. Anyways, let's go. Later, alone with the leader, Betty asked where the craft had flown. I assume that needs to say had flown from. Anyways, admitting she knew little of the universe. The being joked with her, saying, "If you don't know where you are, there wouldn't be any point in me telling you where I am." Now later, under hypnosis, she drew a star map that was shown to her on the ship. And a little interesting thing here. Where she saw the said star map was from a book that they had, because she wanted to bring back evidence. And we'll get into that a little bit more, too, I think, as this thing goes on. But she saw it in a book. Interesting that they have books. Why didn't she pick up a tablet or an iPad? You telling me that these guys, in their infinite wisdom, being years and years ahead of us, still have a book? How interesting. How interesting indeed. But, and they start talking. And she's basically saying, like, look, I would like to be able to answer more of the questions that you guys have for me, but I'm just not the right person to do that. But she's like, look, I would love to facilitate that conversation for you. I would like to be able to get you guys in contact with some folks that could answer all these questions that you have, because I'm just little old me. I only know so much. And they talk about it a little bit. Yeah, and the leader's like, yeah, maybe. We'll see. And she asked him, though, but like, how would you get back in contact with me? How would you know to find me again or somebody else again in a sea of just millions upon millions of people? And the response that he gave to me is very chilling. And he said, we always find those we want. Is that not just creepy? We always find those we want. Oof, I mean, that gives me chills. Now, Jojo says, I've heard of some experiencers being given tablet-like devices. Right. I mean, that would make sense. I mean, show me some technology. And you guys came all this way and you're telling me you're using a book? And it's got like trade lines. That is the way that they described it. Like, this is places that we do and trade stuff with all the time. This is places that we go every now and again. And this is places that we haven't been to, but yet want to go figure out a little bit. And it's basically like just a blank sheet of paper with lines going across it with stops. Makes sense, I guess, if you're traveling through space. And there's the whole star connection and all that stuff. But, I would like to see somebody that's really tech savvy take that picture and overlay it on a globe or a rendition of the flat earth, I guess you could say, depending on how you want to believe. I'd be very curious to see where those things line up. I'd be very curious indeed. So anyways, before we get on, Freaky says, in other words, trackers. I think so. I don't see why not. I think that seems very reasonable. There's all kind of implant stories that we hear all the time. I don't see why not. If you want to take things on a spiritual side, they're always around. You just can't see them. So of course they know where you are. But I don't know. Let's see here. Jojo says maybe it was easier and more relatable for them. Perhaps. Apparently it was very accurate. Perhaps. I don't know. I find it interesting, though. I really do. And I hope that the points that I'm bringing up, are interesting to you guys, too. Like, I'm curious to know if it makes y'all's gears spin the way mine do when I hear some of this. Because some of it I just don't know what to make. It's like, I want to say to the beings, do better. Like, it doesn't add up. The math ain't mathin'. It's, I don't know, whatever. Let's keep going. In 1965, the Hill story was picked up by a Boston newspaper. Now, I have a note here. Aha. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this, and actually makes me very angry, is that when it was picked up, you got to understand that it was kind of picked up against Betty and Barney Hill's wishes. They had no intention of going public with this at this time at all. Nothing that they could have done at the psychiatrist's office could have been leaked because of, patient caregiver privilege, whatever that's called, HIPAA or something, I don't know. Do you know where that info was leaked from? So apparently, as they were trying to make heads or tails of their experiences, I mentioned earlier that they were, pretty active in their church, right? They went and had discussions with people from their church, like as an actual thing, not like just talking and fellowshipping afterwards. No, like they went in consultation with people about it and wanted to know. Freaky says doctor-patient confidentiality. Yeah, probably something like that. That sounds right. But yeah, when they did this consultation with their church, the church recorded it and ended up leaking it to the press. Y'all, that's dirty. That's dirty. I don't think it's like a confession type scenario. I don't think so anyways. Didn't see anything about them being Catholic, so I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. But I don't care. That is absolutely dirty and scummy, and shame on y'all for that. This was some time ago, and I hope that those people responsible answered. Yeah, Freaky says that's one sketchy church. Yeah, I would say so. I sure hope they didn't go back to that one, because that just gives all of us a bad name. Anyways, after that, everything changed. The quiet couple's story became the subject of a best-selling book and a movie starring James Earl Jones. The upstanding civil servants had become celebrity abductees. Interesting. I hope they enjoyed that fame. Anyways, the Hill story became a model for alien abductions. The Hills weren't the first to spot a UFO or even to report an abduction, but their story did capture the nation's imagination and was so widely publicized it has helped shape how we talk about alien encounters and abductions to this very day. Before the Hill story, alien encounters were friendly, according to Christopher Bader, a professor of sociology at California's Chapman University. Some aliens even lived on Earth and commuted back on weekends. But once the Hill story became better known, abduction accounts shared certain characteristics, such as medical examinations and missing time. Aliens with large heads and big eyes, dubbed Greys in UFO circles, became classic sci-fi staples in personal accounts and pop culture, such as Close Encounters of the Third Kind and the show The X-Files. Let's see if you're having notes. Alright, so as far as giving a description of what the gray beings actually looked like, she said that they were around 5 feet tall. They had large chests, slender waists. They were gray. They had a bigger head, and they had cat-like eyes. I feel like I've heard something very similar to that described before. Very similar. However, one of the other notes, and I mentioned this earlier, that I would bring up about what Barney said about them looking, basically thinking of them as men at first. Because when he looked through the binoculars, he said that one of them he saw looked friendly. And they asked him, well, what did he look like? And Barney describes him looking as the friendly one looked as if he was a red-headed Irishman. Now, I don't know about you, but when I picture a gray or anything like that description that I gave earlier about them, I don't picture a red-headed Irishman at all. Now, could that be a screen memory? It's possible. But the leader's description is interesting, and we're going to get into that a little bit later because they bring it up here too. But it seems like to me like the possibility of these grays working side by side with something that looks pretty human. Obviously, it's got a little bit of slanted eye stuff going on, but human is interesting. We hear that a lot. If we want to look at classic UFO lore, we can look at, like, say, descriptions of the Nordics, which are, the same descriptions of, let's go a little further back in the history, the Sidhe, which is a type of fae folk. That's where we get the whole Tolkien-esque idea of elves. We can go a little further back. Well, actually, a lot further back. How are the Anunnaki described? How are Nephilim described? A lot of them are described as giants, but not all of them. There are plenty of different tribes and different variations. And then there's also the red hair. Which, who knows? Maybe it's a thing. I don't know. It does make me think, though. I don't have this written down, but in the spur of the moment, there's another interesting account of a feller from Australia. And I can't remember his name, but I've seen him on multiple shows before. And he describes having some alien interaction. And then one night, when the aliens came, instead of it being aliens, he described two women showing up. And one of them was blonde-headed and looked fairly European. And the other one was black-headed and looked pretty Asian. And in his bed, there was some hair that was left. And they did a DNA analysis of the blonde hair. And if memory serves, the genetics that came back, part of it was unknown, but the part that they could recognize as being human was basically ancient Celtic in origin? Ancient Irish? I don't know. But I find it very intriguing. Freaky says maybe it was a red herring. I don't know. Maybe he encountered the Knights of Ni. I don't know. But anyways, let's keep going. The Hill story and those that came after helped pave the way for a new understanding of human experience. Richard J. McNally, Harvard psychologist, puts it this way: the alien abduction phenomenon, in my opinion, shows how sincere, non-psychotic individuals can develop beliefs about and false memories of incredible experiences that never happened. Well, first of all, Richard J. McNally, shame on you. That's pretty underhanded, man. That makes it harder for people to come out and talk when you talk like that, you know? That's sad. But whatever. Harvard sucks. Experts of all stripes have tried to explain why intelligent, otherwise mentally stable people came forward with these experiences. Many psychologists say sleep paralysis and hallucinations played a role, leading questions during hypnosis. The main way most abductees unlock their stories could have been a factor. Maybe. But once again, I say, poo on your head. That is so underhanded and just mean. You know, you don't know these folks. Why would you be belittling them? You know, that's sad. That's sad. Those who report abductions might also see the world a little differently. According to research, one of the strongest predictors of false recall is a vivid imagination. Oh, you don't say, really? This group scores high in magical ideation. It is more likely to believe in ghosts and tarot card readings, according to McNally. Oh, bro. Some believe the Hill story was simply a myth in the making, with the supernatural meetings, vulnerable protagonists and otherworldly journeys that are often the hallmarks of legend. Many point to the stress of being an interracial couple living in the predominantly white state in a turbulent era. The year of their hypnosis, 1964, was marked by Cold War tensions and civil rights unrest, with numerous urban riots erupting that summer. Quote, "You have a biracial couple at a time where obviously it was not easy to be a biracial couple," says Batter. "Look what those aliens were. A mixture of black and white. I find that very meaningful," end quote. I mean, yeah, if you take like the actual color white and the actual color black and you blend it together with certain variations, you can get gray. Okay, I get what you're coming from with that. But I think that's a load of hogwash. I think that's stupid. But then again, old Fisher didn't go to Harvard, so maybe I'm the dumb one. Abductee stories depend on first-hand accounts, the most vulnerable form of evidence. Memory can be distorted by stress or distraction, or even manufactured. When a false memory is in place, psychiatrists say the brain works to fill in the details. Psychologist Michael Shermer, well, we know who that is. That's Mr. Skeptic on all the UFO shows, right? He points to patternicity, the tendency to see patterns even when none exist, helping us to see faces in clouds or assume that one event caused another. Well, I think, Mr. Shermer, that you need to look at some more red circle pictures. Get up in with them red circles, sir. Anyways, past experiences also shape human perception. Barney, our World War II vet, thought the head, or leader, Gray, looked like Hitler and seemed menacing. let's see here. I have notes here. Yeah, so in Barney's regression, he says that the leader looks evil, and he, for whatever reason, reminds him and looks like Hitler. Now, a gray with that particular mustache, one, to me, is pretty comical. Like, that's straight up memery right there, right? But I don't know. To me, this entire time, like, it seemed to me like, Barney's spirit just feels and knows exactly what's going on. I think it's maybe like the same kind of spirit, or perhaps personality type, energy, if you would. Like the same thing that I feel like Hitler probably would have portrayed. This thing probably portrayed too. For one, let's see, where was I going with that? I just lost my train of thought. Okay, here we go. For one, I find it interesting that this leader, from all the other interactions with everything, seemed to be like the smart one. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's the one that could do the space magic. He was not impressed by dentures. I mean, and the other thing is, like when these things communicated, it was kind of like in like grunts and mumbles is what they described it as. But this is the only one that was actually like talking to them with mind speak, and it was in English. I find that interesting. Now, that's assuming that it was just, that it was a gray, in quotes, right? If it was a human, well, that would make a lot of sense of why he looked the way he did. But also, like, I don't know. I could go either way on that, I guess. I mean, is it human? Is it gray? I don't know. Nobody seems to be clear, but it's odd. It's odd. It's very odd, and I don't know what to make of it. Anyways, Betty, meanwhile, who had been excited to see the aliens, bantered with the affable Gray who performed her medical examination. The alien even agreed to give her a book to bring to Earth with her, she said. Because she asked, I need something to prove that this happened. Anyways, she said, though, the other crew members would later object and overrule that decision. Interesting. In this way, alien abduction encounter stories have helped psychiatrists understand the human brain, its defects, and the weaknesses inherent in memory and first-hand accounts. According to Christopher French, a psychologist specializing in human experience related to the paranormal, quote, what we see and hear, especially under less than ideal observational conditions, can be heavily influenced by our prior beliefs and expectations, end quote. That's what he said to The Guardian. Bruh. You suck. All you sciencey psychologist types, at least all the ones in this, you guys suck. You're meanie heads, you're crappy human beings. I swear. These people went through so much trauma, and you just want to belittle it? Ugh. I don't know what's worse, them or the freaking church that released their documents without their authorization. I don't know what's crappier. NICAP's scientific advisor cross-examined the couple and found their account credible. The Air Force's Project Blue Book would ultimately dismiss the story, determining the unexplained craft would be explained by natural causes. Like swamp gas or something like that, huh? Is that what you got? Silly. Hinting that the couple hadn't seen a spacecraft, but only the planet Jupiter. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't swamp gas. It was Jupiter. They saw Jupiter. Ugh. Shaking my head. For his part, psychiatrist Simon never felt that the Hills had made up their story. Oh, thank you, Simon. He concluded that Betty had dreamed the abduction and Barney had absorbed her story, especially since many of the most vivid details matched description of dreams Betty had jotted down after the event. Oh, really? Let me just finish this paragraph. I believe implicitly in the honesty of these people, he said in the 70s radio program. All right, that's enough. You believe in them, but you also think that it was just a collaboration of their own dreams that they had talked to each other about? Like, bro, okay. When you have traumatic experiences and you have nightmares, now granted, I'm not going to say that these nightmares that you're seeing and reliving in your head are the actual events themselves. I don't think that's always the case. But I'm sorry, if something dramatic happens, you're going to dream about it. You know, and their stories line up because they did their thing, their regressions in isolation. They line up with one another. Obviously, they had different procedures done. Why? Why? I don't know. It sucks. It sucks. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just not buying it. I'm just not buying it. Not buying it at all. I think that's a crappy way to look at it still. At least he thought they were honest people. You know, there's that. So good on him for that. But bro, these people are such C words, I swear. Jojo, you're Australian. You guys throw the C word out there all the time. You can say it for me. I don't want to insult my American audience. Let's see here. Let me make sure I went over all my notes. I know that there's one. That one. Let's see here. Let me go over it. Blah, blah, blah. I think I covered everything. Oh, wait. Yeah, the car. C word, freaky geek asked. Catty? Yes, very catty. Very catty. So one thing I want to note is like the radiation marks on the trunk of the car. And I said that this would be a thing that comes out of left field, right? So one thing to note about the contents of the trunk, besides like their clothes and suitcases and all that, is that there was a lot of... That's how we say it without saying it? Oh, okay. That's cool. Well, at least you guys know what I'm saying, right? You know what I mean. American audiences don't like that word. But anyways, in the trunk, there was a large amount of fertilizer. And the fertilizer was now gone after this experience. So, one thing that I've heard that I think is very interesting, and I don't know what to make of it, is, you know, obviously fertilizer has lots of nitrates in it, right? What really likes nitrates? Now, a podcast that I like to check out, those guys are called Cryptids of the Corn. And one of their theories that they like to postulate, besides like the whole sky jellyfish things and whales and all that stuff going on in the upper atmosphere, is that maybe extraterrestrial life evolved from mushrooms. And they go over this with like Tony Merkel and stuff like that. And I believe like the episode is maybe called like the fungus among us or something like that. But apparently fungus really like nitrates. And they're like, I wonder if they're like sentient mushrooms. And they just gobbled up the fertilizer as like, ooh, road snack. Thanks, guys. It's an interesting theory. I think that's fascinating, and might have something to do with why people on psychedelic trips talk about aliens and stuff. And like, I don't know. It's weird. Like I can't for the life of me like figure out why they would want fertilizer. But I can't also figure out for the life of me why they did the experiments they did on these folks. I think anything of sentience is pretty crappy for doing that. No matter what. I think it's pretty crappy. So, I don't know. But either way, that's the story. So, guys, what did you think? Did I do an okay telling a story? I hope so. I enjoyed doing the research. I thought it was fascinating. I find it interesting how, their abduction encounter basically kind of like sets the stage for like the modern day UFO experiences. Yes, you did miss quite a bit there, Freaky. You missed quite a bit. But yeah, I think it's interesting because like before that, you hear a lot of stories like the friendly space brothers from Venus, right? The Venusians. And like the tone of that stuff is very different. And interestingly, like aligns really good with like the whole Nazis and space theory, But that's a story for another time. But it's neat, It's neat. Not that, the humans / Venusian / Nordic thing stops. I mean, it never seems to stop. I mean, and even some of the clues here in this is kind of like, was there people looking things with them grays? Because it sure does seem like it. But also not. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. But like I said, like, in their story, that's just some of the notes that I picked up on. I didn't have a whole lot of time to go through too much. Like, if you want like the nitty gritty, you're gonna have to get some of those books. And I think her grandniece or something like that released a book not too long ago, a couple years back, recounting everything. That, if I remember correctly, is really good. But there's all kind of like little details that are interesting. And I've hinted at it before, like say, the counting the extra vertebrae, because one of the side effects of being Rh negative is sometimes you have an extra vertebrae. I feel like an X-ray machine would be better than, feeling the dude's spine and counting. But I don't know, maybe intelligent mushrooms from where they call from Zeta Reticuli. I don't know what X-rays are. I don't know. They seem to have light speed figured out, but not X-ray machines. And you got to do a very painful pregnancy test with a big old giant needle through her abdomen. Through her belly button. Just thinking about that makes me squeamish. Like, eek. Yikes. But that's okay, though. It's okay. Everything turned out okay. He used the force. This is not the pain that you're feeling. Everything's cool. Navel. Yeah, navel. Belly button. Whatever. Tomato, same thing. It's okay, though. He had the force. Space Hitler, the mushroom head, had the force and was like, you cannot feel pain. And she didn't feel pain after that. Barney, well, they needed a genetic sample from Mr. RH negative there. And, gave him the good old probe and put something over him to collect the sample that ended up giving him warts? Like, bro, do you guys even know how to, like, sanitize things? Like, I don't know. Do better. I'm sorry. This is from an uncaring and unloving group of folks out there that are, I don't think they're sentient, like in the same way that we would like to think that friendly space brothers are. These things don't care. They don't care about you. They see us as rats or mice. It's just so novel to them, I guess, that we talk, I don't know. But either way, like I said, this is what shapes the modern UFO subject, I guess you would say, for us. And I don't know. A lot to be desired there, I guess. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that these are friendly space brothers. No, it just seems like a bunch of folks that we've known all throughout our history that are wanting to manipulate us for their own ends. But I don't know. Better question is, what do you guys think? What is popping around in y'all's head? Jojo says he got herpes from an alien abduction. That's not funny. Lord, I apologize. Anyways, yeah, right. Like, oof, that's rough. That's rough. That's a heck of a way to do it. Not fun at all. Unless you're into that, but he didn't seem into it. So yeah, definitely not fun at all. So yeah, do better. And like I said, like, guys, all right, when we go through puberty, we have a thing called a wet dream, right? Like, if this thing can use the force to make her not feel pain, why couldn't it use the force to be like, induce wet dream and then collect the sample? Like, why you gotta do that to the guy? Use the force, Luke. Whatever. It's whatever, man. It's whatever. What else y'all thinking? What are y'all thinking? Yeah, I hope he didn't give her the space herpes after the fact. That would suck. That'd be a even worse way to, conclude their honeymoon experience. Sorry, babe, I gave you the space herpes. Yikes. Freaking yikes. Good news is it did clear up, but still gross. But yeah. What else you guys thinking? What else y'all thinking? How did you? Okay, how about this? Let's change off of that subject. Did you guys enjoy the format of Fireside Chat Story with music? What do you guys think? How did you enjoy that? Did I do okay? Give you guys a second. Tippity tappity tippity tappity. Please. Yeah. Freaky says, don't recall any music. You didn't hear the background music? What? Jojo says, yeah, it was cool. Okay, cool. All right. Awesome. Thanks for paying attention, Joe. Appreciate ya. But anyways, yeah. So, yeah, I'll see you. What else you guys might say? But yeah. If the feedback that I got or that I get is positive, I'll look into telling some more stories. I don't know what my next work schedule is going to be looking like. I know if I'm fixing to leave for 4 days. That should have me home by Friday. I might reach out while I'm away and maybe think about doing an interview. But if the feedback on this is good, maybe we'll just do another story. I hate that I can't really like give you guys a schedule. Like that drives me insane. But yeah. Either way, if I'm able to do an interview, we'll make that happen. If things can line up, because I got friends, so that's cool. And technically, I do have, I think 2 stories that I have wrote down in my own notes that I've collected that's worth telling. Because one of the interesting things is like every time I've ever talked to anybody about like my stories, like at work or wherever, I always find it interesting how every time I bring it up and tell something, they tell me something. It's so much more common than people think. Like, you wouldn't expect normal everyday folks to be like, yeah, bro, I saw a UFO too. Really? Yeah, man, it was crazy. Like, I'm surprised by the amount of people that have told me that. In fact, I've got one interesting story that I should probably tell one day about one of my friends who was in the military. He was looking over satellite feeds over an active battlefield and saw some interesting things. Wait, what? Did anyone hear a voice say, hey? About a minute ago? Interesting. I don't know. I guess I'll have to go back and look at that. Doubt it, but it's possible. Either way, I'm not afraid of no ghostesses, so we'll see. However, I will say on the interview I did a couple of days ago that aired right before this with Paul, he heard somebody like snapping in the background. He didn't know if it was on my end or his end. He was going to analyze it. How he picked up on that in the moment is beyond me. But who knows? I'll go back and listen, figure it out. But yeah. So said, yeah, a man's voice I heard say, "Hey." Neato. Figure it out. I do believe I might just do a little bit of fighting tonight, if that's the case. But, yeah, I mean, to be fair, like, I'm in the attic and, like, the wall in front of me is all foamed. Like, that's why my audio on this cheap mic actually sounds good, because I'm, like, facing a foam wall. But behind me, that's just shiplap, back there on the wall that separates it. So it's very easy for things to, like, bleed through from that side. Maybe I should do something about that one day. Yeah. But, yeah. I don't know. Either way, guys, I love you. I really do. I hope y'all take it easy and be good. You know, like and subscribe. Those in future YouTube land. You know, hang out with me in the Facebook. I post witty things there. Yeah, I don't know what else in the business that I need to do. Like and subscribe. Join the Facebook. Share. Yeah, share me out. Why not? Yeah. So, with that being said, I'll update you guys what the plan is sometime next week. So until then, tookie tookie, and bye.